And still I rise to commemorate August 20th as Slavery Remembrance Day because, as I've indicated many times on this floor, done so today, it is the date that the White Lion, a ship with 20 persons of African ancestry, docked at a place called Point Comfort near what we now call Norfolk, Virginia. It was a moment in time that has an impact on the rest of time in this country. Because you see, for 246 years, persons of African ancestry, more than 10 million, were brought to this country to sacrifice. And they sacrificed such that this very building was a product of their hands. They sacrificed to build roads and bridges. They were the persons who sacrificed to plant the crops and harvest and feed the nation. For 246 years they sacrificed, yet to this day they have not been properly acknowledged for the sacrifice that they suffered. They've not been acknowledged. We have acknowledged others. We've acknowledged the Confederate soldiers that fought to maintain slavery. We did so in 1956. We've acknowledged others. I think it's time to acknowledge them because, truth be told, they were the economic, foundational mothers and fathers of the country. This country's economic success was built on 246 years of sacrifice made by persons who were enslaved in our great country. Why not honor them for their sacrifice? Why not allow them to have, at last, the honor that they have earned by virtue of their sacrifice? And this is what we will attempt to do on August 20th. We've been doing so now for a number of years. On August 20th, Slavery Remembrance Day, we plan to have a major event right here in the Capitol, right here in the facility just off these grounds, in the Visitors Information Facility, or the Visitor Center as it's called, my bad. We plan to honor them with a day of remembrance. And I am honored to say that there are many persons who will be in attendance, including the men of the Masonic Order. They will come and pay tribute, as I will. But it's about more than tribute. It's about legislation that we have that we'll present to do what we did not do, and that is not only pay tribute to them, but also to have those who participated in this enslavement by way of their predecessor institutions. I'm talking about banks and insurance companies. We have legislation to seek atonement for this behavior of their predecessor institutions. But more importantly, we will have a final opportunity on that day, as we will on August 20th and all future days, to ask and remind people that we have legislation pending to accord a Congressional Gold Medal to the enslaved. We're asking the President of the United States to present them with a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Give them in death what they never had in life, some semblance of freedom. We plan to acknowledge people who have been helpful with this journey. Mr. Steny Hoyer, who at the time was a majority leader, he was helpful in getting legislation through the House to acknowledge Slavery Remembrance Day. So today I rise as a progenitor of August the 20th as Slavery Remembrance Day. I rise today as a scion of the enslaved Africans whose lives were sacrificed for 246 years to make America great. And thereafter, their lives were sacrificed, many of them, in something called convict leasing, to continue slavery under another name. And thereafter, They were treated as second-class citizens, my ancestors, with something called lawful segregation. Lawful segregation, which was a form of invidious discrimination, which was a form of racism. All of these things happened. We can't deny them. The truth is being told. But I'm saying to you, notwithstanding all of these things, I still love my country. I'm saying to you, notwithstanding all of these things, my country still hasn't done enough to acknowledge the history and acknowledge the suffering of those whose lives were sacrificed to make America great. August 20th, we plan to continue the process of acknowledgement, plan to continue the process of honoring and causing people to understand that in this country, notwithstanding our history, we can atone. There is time to atone, which brings me to the last piece of legislation that we will call to the attention of persons assembled. And this piece of legislation calls for a Department of Reconciliation. We have not reconciled. We have not. There are many things that we need to reconcile. Slavery is one of them. The things that happened to the indigenous Americans, the aboriginal Americans, we call them Indians, but the things that happened to them were unconscionable. They suffered injustices that no one else has suffered in this country. We ought to atone. We ought to have a Department of Reconciliation with a Secretary of Reconciliation who reports directly to the President of the United States of America with the sole mission of bringing about atonement and reconciliation for our many transgressions. If America is to be America for all Americans, we have to do this. We have to have the atonement. And it has to also include the many persons of Asian ancestry whose ancestors came here and built the railroads, whose ancestors were interned simply because there was a war going on and they happened to be of a certain ancestry. Their ancestors were related to the war, but they were not. They were Americans, many of them, and they were interned unjustly, unlawfully, in my opinion. So we have to atone for this. But we also have to atone for what happened with Texas. I'm a representative from the state of Texas. I proudly wear a Texas tie when I'm on the floor, if not a tie celebrating the United States of America in some way. This is my way of showing my patriotism. I also sing the national anthem. I stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. But we have to atone for what happened with Texas. Texas is the only state in the Union to secede twice because of slavery. Texas left Mexico because Mexico said, no more slavery, Texas. Texas said, well, if we can't have slavery, we will leave Mexico. And they did. Texas did. And then became a part of the United States. Texas then left the United States because of slavery. So we have to atone for these things. We have to acknowledge that they occurred. And we have to, on August the 20th, bring to the attention of our country the fact that we will honor those whose lives have been sacrificed, and we should have a Department of Reconciliation in addition to Slavery Remembrance Day to honor those persons whose lives were sacrificed. Mr. Speaker, it is always an honor to stand here in the well of the House. I do love my country, but my country has not always loved me. It's difficult sometimes to love that which does not love you, but I do, and I have, and I will, because the truth be told, notwithstanding all of the things that have happened and many that have happened to me personally, I've celebrated my 25th birthday for the third time. I'm now into my fourth 25th. All of these things, it is my belief that if something bad has to happen to you now, let it happen to you in the United States of America. If you have to go through a divorce, if your spouse is going to leave you, let it happen in the United States of America. If you have to suffer the alienation of affection from your pet, your dog bites you, let your dog bite you in the United States of America. Friends, notwithstanding all of the things that have happened, I still believe that the best place to make change and to bring about liberty and justice for all is the United States of America. I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.